are going to have a session about attention and discussing about attention and the neurocognitive basis of attention in a sort of pragmatic and clinical sense. So let's get started and go for the class and the things that we have today. So as you know, today we are going to kind of cover 8 different topics, 8 different sections. So I will try to go through these 8 different pieces, and I'm hopeful that is going to be something exciting to have for today. Now, the first part. In the first part, I'm trying to give you a sense about what does attention mean and how we might be able to intervene in attention and where to intervene in what we are interested to kind of modulate the attentional capacity or attentional ability among different clinical population or healthy controls. And for that, let's start with some, let's say, exercises or brain exercises. So if you are ready, I'm going to give you an exercise to do, and then we will go through the process together to see what does it mean in terms of the attention and attentional processing. Are you ready? Okay. So you will have 3 minutes. I'm going to give you a figure that has some hidden objects, a list of hidden objects on the top, and you are going to find those hidden objects in the figure and try to do that without using, obviously you do not have any sort of kind of pen or other things to use. You're just going to use your kind of visual tracking system and trying to find those pieces. And I'm going to ask you to just show us those pieces in the figure at the end of the 3 minutes time that you're going to have. Go ahead. You are going to report me how many of these items have you found at the end of 3 minutes. Okay, anybody who has found every of those 7 items? 6. Okay, 6, 3, 5. Now you can start to report how many of those items have you found. Zainab, how many items have you found?
Only 6.
6, okay. Zahra is a 7 item person, right?
Yes, right.
Okay, good. So let me just spoil the question and just show the items. So, could you see them right now? Okay. How was your feeling? Did you have been trying to find that? You've had a feeling that you are doing something and you are putting pressure on a specific cognitive function. And that is what we call attention. But if you want to kind of say that which type of attention we are engaging in this process, what do you suggest in terms of the specific type of attention that we are engaging right now? Just write in the selective attention, top-down attention, down attention, sustained attention, top-down attention. Good. Top-down. I'm seeing the chat space. What type of attention? And as we discussed before, we discussed about attention as something like a spotlight in a stage that has a specific span and is able to be moving across the stage. And we discussed that when we have what we call a focused attention, we try to reduce the attentional span to a certain point and keep it at that certain point for a period of time. So we call that focused, sustained attention. And usually when we talk something that is focused and sustained, then we call that concentration. So the concentration of attention, as we describe right now, in terms of just narrowing the attentional span and then keeping that in a specific place, or sometimes just moving that around. Because for the flexible attention, we need to just go and find different items in different places. So that was an exam that was trying to give you a sense about which type of brain muscle you are engaging in that specific task. And talking about that specific brain muscle is what we call metacognition. trying to give you a cognition over the cognitive processing that you already have. And that is a really interesting topic in terms of giving people an idea about how different brain functions are engaged in different daily tasks, and how you might be able to say that, okay, when I'm doing this specific task in my daily life, then this type of attention is engaged. And I can feel that this type of attention is in sore because of the pressure that I'm putting on that type of brain function. So that is a kind of level of understanding that we call metacognitive kind of awareness. That is critically important. I will discuss about that in the next step as well. Let me give you another homework or another task or another kind of exercise. We have a specific pattern. Try to find this target pattern that we have on the top and give me a number in terms of how many of these items we already have in other parts of the figure that we have here. As an example, I can show you one here. But you are going to just do that with your eyes. So try to find as many as possible, as soon as you can. 7, 6, 7, 7, 7. As you can see, with exactly the same, there would be, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if we want to have other similar patterns, there would be more as well. And then let me give you another homework. How many squares you can find here? I'm talking about a square, not rectangle. I'm just talking about just squares. How many squares do you have here in this figure? Okay, 11, 12. Okay, those who have more than 10, you can just turn on your video and tell me how you found more than 10.
Other ones that I can find.
So this is one, 1, 2,
yeah,
3.
Unit of length, I think 4. The 4 together and one there 5.
Okay, and then?
And those ones who have a bigger unit of length, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and one in middle.
1,
that would be
2,
again 5.
3. Yes.
And the one with a bigger again length, the 3 part, yeah. But that's just the only one. The big,
the biggest one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and also the edge of the blue.
Plus 1, and then?
And the edge of the whole blue square. That's a square.
Okay, do you mean this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it would be 10.
I think you did not count some of them. 5 small ones, 5 middle ones.
That the middle one would be 5. Okay, and then 12.
Yeah.
There are 2 square in right and left.
Okay, so Adrian, do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that is exactly the type of challenge that I like you to do for yourself in terms of doing different sorts of brain games that people are providing, and try to think about, okay, what type of attention do I engage to solve this problem? And is there a kind of a specific kind of difference between the type of attention I'm using here and the type of attention I'm using in the other games? Trying to see, can you differentiate different types of attentions that you have? Can you see that you already have something like a really kind of narrow spotlight on the stage, or you already have a divided spotlight, or your spotlight is just moving in different parts? Or can you differentiate your executive functioning in terms of finding different items, trying to shift them from one part to the other, comparing different things together? Can you differentiate your executive functioning with the attentional process or not? So trying to give yourself enough time and resolution to be able to tease apart these cognitive functions, and trying to see how you can enhance the resolution of your metacognition in terms of being able to differentiate these cognitive functions and try to label them correctly with the terms that we use during this course, in terms of, okay, we already have this type of working memory, these are different types of working memory we have. These are different types of memories that we have. These are different types of attention that we have. As much as you can have expanded definitions of different cognitive functions and trying to label different functions that are engaged in different games that you are doing, that is going to give you a higher level of metacognition, and that is going to be critically important and interesting to extend. We have discussed about the framework through the course, discussing about different processes in terms of, okay, we discussed about, let's say, bottom-up attentional processes when we see something like a snake. And then we discuss about top-down attention process. We discuss about working memory, different lines of working memories from the verbal side, from the visual spatial side. We discussed about memory, different types of memory that are involved, whether they are episodic memories or semantic memories. And then discussing about habits and other levels of memories that we have. We haven't started yet to discuss about action planning and decision making. Through the course, we will discuss about these pieces later on, discussing how these pieces are working. But technically, when we are discussing about, let's say, top-down attention and how the top-down attention is being processed, it's really hard to differentiate that with the executive functioning. So attention, executive functioning, these things are working highly connected to each other. And meanwhile, the working memory is going to be critical as well. So most of the time you use these three pieces together. So you use your working memory to count the numbers of the let's say, squares that you have, or try to just memorize or have the shape of different figures that you had on the top, and trying to compare those shapes with other shapes that you have inside the figure. You technically need to use your working memory. You technically need to have your central executive function, and you need to also have your attention. So these pieces are working together, and in most of the tasks we have different engagement of these three functions together to be able to process a specific brain training game. And the good thing about these processes is it seems that, especially for attention, they are highly trainable. And if we want to compare them together in terms of which one is more trainable, probably attention and top-down voluntary attention is going to be the most trainable function that we have among these functions that we discussed about before. And that is going to open doors for many potentials in terms of, okay, how we might be able to train attentional processing. Is there any specific question that somebody was interested to ask? No? Okay. Whenever you feel that there is a kind of burning question, just turn on your video. If I would find time, I definitely would ask you to ask your question, and then we can kind of discuss about that together. So attention is going to be a trainable function. But the question is, okay, how we can do what we call attention training. And how attention training is going to be important, how attention training is going to be something that is going to be clinically relevant to what we are doing. I discussed about a model that we developed before in terms of how we might be able to modulate our response to an emotionally or kind of motivationally salient stimuli. Let's say seeing a really appealing chocolate cake in a confectionery or a pastry, and how we are going to respond to that in terms of, okay, am I going to eat that, or am I going to just leave the place without eating the chocolate cake? That's an interesting cognitive dilemma in terms of how these processes are going to happen, and why sometimes I'm just stopping there and I'm buying that cake and I would eat the cake, or sometimes I'm just passing by without taking any kind of further time to spend to buy the cake and eat the cake. And the question is, okay, what are the cognitive functions that are engaged? And I highly kind of suggest you to try to do it yourself in terms of, okay, when I'm getting engaged in these kind of scenarios, how do I process that? How do I kind of use different cognitive functions in different, something like a dynamic process of going through what we call attention, memories that we have, saliency processing, interoception, control, how these functions are involved. But in reality, it seems that attention is going to be a really critical part of the process because it is something like a gate. If the gate of attention is open, if you are attending to a stimuli, then you definitely would have memory, saliency processing, interoception, and then you need to use your control to be able to change the response. But if you are able to control things from the attentional side without letting the information to go through these kind of multiple steps, you basically stop the process from the first kind of steps, and that is going to definitely be critically helpful in terms of, let's say, spending less energy to process the things and then making a significant level of craving that is going to be really hard to control. Okay? And meanwhile, when we talk about all these cognitive functions, it is true that attention is the gate, but it's really hard to have memory retrieval without attention. It's really hard to have saliency processing without attention. It's really hard to have interoceptive processing without attention. And it's really hard to have executive control without attention. So attention is probably the function that we have through whatever we do in the conscious processing of information in our brain and exert our voluntary control over that process. So without attention, it's really hard to have these processes. And that is the reason that sometimes people just, when they want to talk about attention, they also talk about, let's say, consciousness as well. I mean, these two functions are highly related to each other because without attention, there is no consciousness. And consciousness and attention are highly related to each other. Sort of kind of the consciousness could be a sort of production of attention as well. So if we can train people to have a better attention, not to attend to kind of salient stimuli from the first place, then we can save their lives if they are substance users, if they are diabetic people who are not supposed to eat more, but they are exposed to food cues that are going to stimulate them to eat, and that is going to be detrimental for their health in long term. But how attention training could be happening? So attention training is going to be an interesting topic, and how we might be able to train attention. I'm just going to give you few ideas about the complexities of attention training and how we might be able to develop a program for attention training. So we all know that attention training is something interesting, and with attention training we can have better executive control and we can have kind of better functioning. And even over the time, I realized that those who are really able to control their attention in the best possible way, they could definitely be very successful people, because most of the time people are very distracted with different things in their life, and they just spend huge amount of their time attending to different things, and that is not going to work for you at the end of the day. Without focused attention and sustained focused attention over a time, you would not succeed. There is no persistence without sustained attention over time. And that is definitely a really important recipe for being successful in any area, of course, kind of including science as well. But the question is how attention training could be happening. Is this just something like kind of giving people the games like what I gave you before, and then asking them to just do these games? Is this going to help in terms of developing attention or improving attention over time or not? The reality is that there are at least 4 major concerns or complexities in terms of developing attention training. Yes, we know if we give people games, if we encourage them to do the games, that is probably going to help them to train their attention muscle. That is probably the basic building block of attention training. But there are some challenges. First of all, we need to make that as something like a sustainable way of doing attention training. It's something like a physical exercise. When we do physical exercise, we need to be able to make that sustainable. So people need to have a specific, let's say, goal. People need to have a specific target. People need to have a specific level of motivation. And they need to do it in something like a group of people in a sort of kind of a culture. They even need to have a brand. For example, I usually tell people that I'm a marathon runner. So labeling myself as a marathon runner and a person who is able to run marathons and is planning to run marathon and discussing with people. For example, I was planning to run Istanbul marathon in November, and I was receiving messages in terms of, are you going to kind of join us for the Istanbul marathon? And I was planning not to. I mean, probably I cannot make that happen because of the COVID situation and things that are happening around the world. But that is a specific sort of brand of being a marathon runner and the culture of being in a community of people who are doing marathon running. And then the reward I'm receiving in the process of running, as we discussed about, and the level of motivation that I have. And I've discussed about that with you before in terms of what are the motivations that I have, at least some of the motivations that I have for running, what are the things that are rewarding me to keep that going. And then a specific targets that I have. Okay, I'm planning for running, let's say, Boston Marathon in April. I'm planning to do New York Marathon in November. So these kind of specific goals, and based on that, thinking about, okay, I'm targeting my, let's say, training towards these muscles or these, let's say, parts of my body because I need those parts to be working. Without having these pieces, your attention training is not going to work. And that is the reason that there are few examples of attention training programs that are actually working right now outside as something like a really clinically meaningful intervention. Probably one of the most kind of effective intervention that we already have is what we call mindfulness / I should say meditation. Meditation is probably one of the really good examples of attention training that has been developed around kind of human culture from thousands of years ago, and people try to expand that with different, let's say, brands and kind of structures, but trying to focus the attentional spot on something like, let's say, respiration or your body parts or your thoughts. And then having a specific, let's say, goal or path in terms of, okay, I'm doing this because it is going to help me to have a better understanding about self, developing a higher level of understanding about myself and the weakness and kind of the strengths that I have, and trying to do something like a self-improvement or self-development. So that is going to be, so when we do mindfulness and meditation, when you ask people why you are doing meditation or mindfulness, what is the reason? People would give you different sort of reasons that they are doing. I probably can ask people who are already online right now. I'm not sure if we already have Ashkan online. He was not feeling very well yesterday. I hope that he was able to make it. I'm not sure he's online or not. But any other person who is doing meditation, any sort of meditation, could you just turn on your videos and share your experience with us in terms of why are you doing meditation? Why are you using meditation in your daily life? What is, let's say, your training target? Basically, where do you want to get when you do your meditation? We just have 1% among 100% who is doing meditation? Really? Or others are just basically shy? Keep on trying. We really like to have your experience as well. Kiana, go ahead. What do you do for meditation, and what is your training target?
Yeah, so I am a yoga teacher actually, and I do practice meditation and like yoga practices every day. And I have found that it has significantly changed the way I think, and I also like the level of my awareness during my daily tasks. And it's not just about like when we think about meditation, we think about just being calm or like sitting somewhere closing our eyes. But it's just actually like being really aware in everything that we do. Like, so even if I'm doing, like I'm studying or I'm working or I'm even talking to someone, it has really helped me to really try to really be conscious of my basically performance in everything that I do. And that is really important because I feel like then I can really analyze myself and see if what I did was like, for instance, at that moment right, or if I would have done it in a better. And also I have noticed that it has really helped me it has improved my capabilities in different things, like literally sport, studying, or even my interactions with others. It has made me like, because especially that we're living in a very stressful, I think, a modern society, and it's very high paced nowadays. So it's really hard to actually take time and pause, and like when we are interacting with each other, like we really listen to each other. I have noticed that like practicing some sort of like yoga or any type of a sport in general, because I love the sports a lot. And I've noticed that doing a sport that like requires you to really focus and pay attention to different parts of your body that are active also really helps you in other tasks as well. Like when you're interacting with other people, when you're, I don't know, doing your work or studying, especially when interacting with other people, I've noticed that it's very helpful because it makes me listen more. And when you listen more, then you realize that there is so much to actually learn in a specific conversation when you're having with someone. Although there are still some times that you can feel really tired and fatigued, and then it's not very helpful. But in most of the time, I can say that it's a daily thing that you have to really invest. Like I've noticed that it's just, even if one day I miss my practice, that they can affect my performance as well. And when you do it more and more and more in a long term, then you can really see the effect and how it really changes your life. And I think there is individual kind of personalized practice for everybody. So you have to kind of find what is it that will work best for you.
Oiku, if I'm kind of reading your name correctly, could you share your experience with us as well?
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly well. Yeah.
Okay. You pronounced it correctly. It's a bit hard to pronounce and U letters, so don't worry about it, Professor. Well, I've been doing yoga and meditation for 6 or 7 years, maybe, and I actually have very bad panic attacks. That's why I started meditation. That was the reason. And I find that it helps me to calm my heartbeat and just forget the reason why I was panicking in the first place and just connect with the moment. So it really helps me to calm down. I think there is a therapy method called mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, and there they use meditation as a technique for therapeutic advancement. So yoga too actually helps me to calm down. In fact, the corpse pose right after you finish your session, your exercise, you actually meditate there. So it really helps me to calm down and reconnect with my body as well. Because at the moment of panic attack, you just think about how your heartbeat is so fast and how you're not going to do anything, and you think you're about to die, but focusing on your breathing, trying to calm your breathing a bit, it really helps. So that's why meditation is really helpful.
Perfect. That was a really good explanation about the situation. And I want to connect this, let's say, an ancient practice of meditation for thousands of years, And what we are discussing in terms of, attention training, in terms of giving people games and engaging their attention and trying to improve attention, if you want to have something that is going to be effective, it needs to have those features in terms of, let's say, having a specific brand, like what we discussed, let's say mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, mindfulness-oriented recovery enhancement. There are different packages right now around the idea of mindfulness. And all of them would basically have their own specific culture and brand. And sometimes even when you go to different yoga studios, there are different branches of yoga. There are different branches of, let's say, even in terms of the spirituality that they are kind of using, different frameworks that people are using. And sometimes one group does not like what the other group is doing. So you can see that there are specific, let's say, a specific culture around the process. And it is motivating. People feel that is kind of making them relax. They have a better feeling. They have a better meaning of themselves. Meanwhile, they have a specific targets. They want to increase their mood. They want to be able to control their thoughts. They want to have, let's say, control their panic attack, improving their performance. And then they target different things. They might target their body. They might target their thoughts, their respiration. So you can see people are targeting different things for attention training. So if you want to have a cognitive training package that is going to be effective and clinically meaningful, it needs to have these pieces inside. It is not just, let's say, the games and the cognitive tasks that you are giving people to activate their cognitive function. You need to have all other pieces to be able to develop a culture around that, to make people to do that over time. And probably there are just few examples around the time that people have been successful in the field of psychology or cognitive psychology to develop something that is going to be effective at that level. And the reality is most of those advancements are not really built by scientists. Sometimes even they have been built by others from other areas, not really from the science side. Things like, let's say, even 12 steps program. I'm not sure, have you heard about Narcotic Anonymous or Alcoholic Anonymous? These are technically cognitive interventions, and sometimes they are targeting specific cognitive functions. But in reality, there are specific reasons around a specific culture, a specific intervention that makes it really successful. So I wanted to mention in terms of how you go from a simple idea of attention training that students are interested to do in their, let's say, master or PhD thesis, as just showing that, attention training is going to improve, let's say, mood. It's going to improve the weight control. It's going to improve all these functions. Towards having something that's going to make a global impact and long-term impact in people's life. And that is how cognitive neuroscience could get even more interesting. Okay, so that was the first part of the session, discussing about how we are trying to understand attention and attentional processing and trying to tease apart different components of attention processing and trying to understand attention. And then hopefully in the next part, I will be able to give you more details in terms of, what are the neural parts that are involved. And at the end of the session today, I will discuss about, how our understanding about these neural components would also help us to develop even some technologies to be able to help us to modulate attentional processing. And that is going to be the last part of the session for today. So keep up with me, try to kind of see what we are discussing about, and I hope that at the end you will have a better understanding for attention from the, let's say, the cognitive training side towards the technologies that might stimulate attention and increase attentional processing.